Welcome, everyone. This is Dead Cape Bounce. Welcome to Hxro Labs Live. Today's Canadian Thanksgiving, so standing in for our guy Random Task today. Welcome back to this live stream. Today we're talking ARMADA, which is a public good to power the next generation. Dead Cape Bounce. Welcome to Hxro Labs Live. Today's Canadian Thanksgiving, so standing in for our guy Random Task today. With me, I have Taylor and Tommy, who are co-founders of Sci-Fi, and Gunny, who is a co-founder of Hxro Network, to talk about everything Solana projects we know about how ARMADA's suite of tools will revolutionize token launch and management. I'm going to pass it over to Taylor and Tommy, who are co-founders of Sci-Fi, sound check. Hxro Network, anyone else getting feedback about how ARMADA's suite of tools will revolutionize token launch and management.
There's something going on here.
Okay, let's try that again. I don't hear any feedback. Are we good?
Yeah, there's just an endless echo there.
Should I try that again? Okay, maybe I'll say that again. Okay, so this is Dead Cape Bounce. Welcome to Hxro Labs Live. Today's Canadian Thanksgiving, so I'm standing in for Random Task. He has a solo stream to talk charts and markets later this week, so he'll be back. But today we're here to talk about ARMADA, which was launched last week, a public good to power the next generation of token ecosystems on Solana. That was a joint effort between contributors from Hxro Network as well as Sci-Fi. So today with me, I have Sci-Fi co-founders Taylor and Tommy, and then Gunny, of course, from Hxro, to talk about everything Solana projects need to know about ARMADA's suite of tools and how they'll help projects from initial token launch to ongoing management. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Gunny first, just talking sort of big picture first around having Hxro Network and Sci coming together. What was the motivation for people listening behind creating this sort of public good for the ecosystem? Like, what was the push that kind of kicked this all off?
What kicked it all off was there was a lot of building going on, or there has been a lot of building going on Hxro Network, and we saw a big void in the space in the Solana ecosystem, at least for tooling that was needed to facilitate everything from like really just the base tooling and the infrastructure that was needed for token-based ecosystems to exist, from like Genesis all the way through to like liquidity and stuff like that. And I had reached out. I had known Tommy and Taylor for quite a while, just because we've all been in the same segment of the market, specifically in the Solana ecosystem. And we had a couple discussions, and turned out they were working on some stuff that I would maybe consider tangential to some of the needs that we needed at the time. And we're sitting in a bear market, and what better time is it to build cool new things at the bottom of a bear market? And so we worked through some stuff and brought our ecosystems together to work on ARMADA, and that's how it started.
Very Web3 centric on that. So kind of coming together at like the Sci and Hxro and everything like that. I want to pass it over to Tommy, Taylor, whichever one of you wants to start. We talked a little bit about big picture, sort of why this started to begin with, but let's get into a little bit more of a high level overview of, I guess, what we call ARMADA's V1 fleet. If we want to call it that, of the initial offering that projects can look forward to or dig into now from ARMADA.
Yeah, so there's a few components, as Gunny mentioned. I mean, we wanted to handle everything from launching a token to getting incentivizing and getting liquidity on that token, to robust tokenomics that feeds into governance, because there's a lot of puzzle pieces in the Solana ecosystem that are like totally disjoint, and it leaves users who want to get involved in an ecosystem or a DAO very confused at where they should be participating to get the most value for themselves as well as the organization they're a member of. And so ARMADA's V1 fleet is kind of the first few pieces. There's a liquidity bootstrapping curve / liquidity bootstrapping pool program that helps communities launch tokens. Then there's a concentrated liquidity market making vault, which sits on top of a Uni v3 style pool, currently Orca's Whirl pools. And that basically allows users or teams and token holders to delegate their assets to an institutional market maker to manage the underlying positions on those concentrated pools. Because those aren't just kind of set and forget it. If you want to optimize TVL to capture volume and generate returns, you should be monitoring those and managing them almost kind of like an order book. And then the last piece of the V1 fleet is some unique incentivization mechanisms. We've done a lot of work with option structures and created a new incentivization mechanism with like a discount token. And so all of that's wrapped into Armada's V1.
And I think just to add to that, I think when Gunny approached us about this project, it was, something that we saw a big need for, after building Psi for the last 2-3 years. We've definitely seen a lot of issues in fragmentation of liquidity, centralized exchanges versus decentralized exchanges. And kind of Armada has been the culmination of all of those learnings baked into one platform, one-stop shop for these, new projects launching on Solana to come and utilize. We want teams to be able to focus on building their products, not have to focus on building their tokenomics infrastructure and whatnot.
Yeah, and we think like on-chain should be the best place to trade tokens. There's no reason to need a centralized venue when you have Solana's throughput and speed.
Yeah, and we see a lot of people talking about, at least on Twitter, which is definitely a bit of an echo chamber. You see a lot of people talking about how Solana needs more tokens, more projects need to launch tokens, and not really enough about, how to launch those tokens and the ongoing management of them. So maybe let's talk, toss it to Gunny, talk a little bit about the token launch mechanisms that Armada has ready for projects that are interested in launching a token anytime soon.
Yeah, there's two that are that we can kind of specifically talk about. One is an auction, a Dutch style auctioning mechanism called the liquidity bootstrap curve, and then another is a liquidity bootstrap pool. The curve is effectively an auction that has some fixed period of time on it where you can basically set the parameters of like where the auction starts, and then it would generally have some type of like decay function on it that would say, okay, the price of the token is starting at X, and then as it moves towards, like goes down the time curve, it's gonna have some decay where the price is gonna go lower. And the idea is that, like any auction, is that auctions are set up where a seller or a price is moved down to find a buyer. And then conversely, like when price goes up, it's moved up until it finds sellers. And then where you kind of end up when you have price discovery is if you do it right, you end up with this kind of like equilibrium price, or this like kind of like the middle of like a bell curve is what it would kind of look like in a market structure. So the idea is to set up an auction where price kind of starts at a certain price and then would decay lower to find buyers. And then as buyers come in, there's a function that would drive the price back up and create kind of like a bidding concept to it. And then at expiration of the auction, wherever you have your tokens is where you're getting your tokens, and those get distributed to you. And then the idea is that the proceeds from that would then go to the project, and the project is using those things from everything from like operations to protocol owned liquidity. And then ideally those assets would get matched with more tokens, and then those would be put into pools that then would, with in Armada vaults, that would then be traded, added to overall market liquidity for that particular token. So that was kind of the first concept. We came up with that. Really, we got to give kind of like an HT to Strata Protocol, which Strata was a project that was built, I think more in like 2021. Was initially built by the guy who's now the CTO of Helium, and the similar kind of auctioning concept there tokens, and I think eventually for NFTs. But that project was sitting there in open source. We took a look at it. Maybe some elements were used from it, but that was kind of what the genesis of that idea was. And then off of that, once we started creating liquidity vaults, which Tommy and Taylor can speak to next, we realized with the way that these vaults are structured, they're super flexible, and so the nature of these vaults is really like what we'd call like a V3 style pool, where you can have ranges that are, as Tommy said, they're market maker managed in the construct in ARMADA, but you can actually use them to hold token launches, where the project would basically just determine the ranges that they would want these tokens offered at to the market, and put those into the vault, and then the vault would launch, and then as people want to buy the tokens, they can come in and buy the tokens it can either be at one price, or it could be at particular tranches at different levels, which I think is a much more interesting way to do it. And then as proceeds are accumulated, they can be swept into a reserve, and then those are then sent to some fixed percentage based on what the project's needs and desires are, can be sent to the treasury, and then some other percentage then can be routed back to maybe a more balanced vault that would exist in ARMADA, that can then be matched with more tokens and then used as like for ongoing liquidity. So I don't know, Tommy or Taylor, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you covered everything worth mentioning there.
But the general idea, again, it is, the more that we got into this, the more we realized like there is this need in Solana, and there is a desire and a demand for token-based ecosystems to exist, but there was like very, very limited tooling, which is why we created this as a public good, beyond just like the needs of maybe Hxro network only, or for Psi or for whoever. So, but that, I think, one of the things I'm most excited about is the fact that this really does have the potential to kind of sit at the center of the Solana token ecosystem, and there is a huge demand for it. Like DeFi 1.0 in Solana, we got kind of stuck down the little bit down the FTX and SBF path, and that created a lot of tokens that had very high, a very low float with high FDV, and not much in the way of token design. But this now is kind of setting a path, and some of the other tooling that's getting built to make it kind of like full stack front to back, from token launch to rewards to vaults and everything that's needed there. So.
Yeah, didn't know if Taylor had anything to add before, but kind of going on the next part of this, right? So you launch a token. After you have the token, you want something that your community is able to do with that token. You want that token to be liquid. Liquidity, obviously, very, very central to all things DeFi. So I know we had a spaces last week with the three of you all, and then with Orca as well, just around token liquidity management on Solana. The current issues that projects with token SPL-based tokens have now, what ARMADA is looking to solve for, and then talking a bit about the CLMM from ARMADA, which is the concentrated liquidity market making vaults that Gunny sort of referenced before. So passing over to Tommy and Taylor, maybe just start off a little bit with sort of the problem today, or like things that might be missing from Solana's token ecosystem around liquidity management once tokens are launched. And then we can get a little bit into the CLMM, do a little screen share of what ARMADA's platform looks like for that as well.
Cool. Yeah. Maybe best actually, before we jump into CLM, I'm just going to start the screen share now. And I think maybe just to conceptualize some of the stuff Gunny was speaking to, like here's kind of what it would look like when someone's actually doing, their liquidity bootstrapping curve. And this is like an end auction on DevNet. But I think like the visualization is helpful as we step through from, beginning of token launch to actual, concentrated liquidity market making. But so then, once this project has like sold out tokens and they've done price discovery, the next step is to move on to adding liquidity on chain. So that way people can actually like come in and buy and sell. New market participants and come in that are interested in the token, interested in the project, come and actually purchase it. So to do so, you need liquidity on chain. And that's where these concentrated liquidity market making vaults come into play. The end goal here, these are actively managed. We'll have an institutional market maker trying to, help improve liquidity, trying to have like the best price spreads, or sorry, the most amount of liquidity around current price possible, such that these vaults have attractive yields to attract more participants, but also make sure that there's the lowest amount of slippage possible when people are coming in to actually purchase. And kind of how these work are, you have a market maker that has the ability to layer on positions onto the underlying Orca Whirlpool. And they have the ability to actually add up to 5 positions, which allows for more robust strategies and more, basically more diverse strategies rather than one long price band. So right here, you can see kind of what the market maker would see. Only the market maker can add adjust liquidity and open up positions. And then as fees are collected, they're then swapped back into the pool. We started with a handful of assets as we've been testing on mainnet. Things have been pretty good and performing well over the last couple of weeks of volatility. Definitely looking to expand, our product suite and kind of attract more liquidity for the tokens that actually launch from using ARMADAs like LBCs and LBPs. I don't know, Tom, do you have anything else to add there?
No, I think you also covered it all. I think, well, actually, the other thing is there's, the biggest differentiation here is there can be so many unique strategies ran. The pools right now are just focused on 50-50 balancing pools. But other pools could be focused more on selling out over time, like dollar cost averaging out or dollar cost averaging in, while also earning some sort of cash flow. So more to come on these other unique strategies that we're going to be doing some write-ups on and having some market makers running. But the flexibility is really, really cool.
I guess one other thing that's worth noting is that these are all non-custodial. So it's not like the market maker can actually withdraw your tokens. The tokens are still your tokens, right? Not your keys, not your coins. And so the market maker really only has the ability to adjust where liquidity is put on top of the Orca Whirlpool. So basically they can set the price bands at which they'll be supplying liquidity, and that's it. And then also adding and deleting positions. But you can come in, any user or protocol, whomever is managing, the liquidity on top of the vault can come in and withdraw at any point in time, and it'll just withdraw their prorated amount from the actual vault. So it is worth noting. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
Oh, no, you finish your thought, then I'll chime in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it is worth noting that these balances will change over time as the price changes and as position change on the pool. So you're not guaranteed to withdraw the same amount that you've inputted. It really just depends on where the market is at and where the positions are for the current vault.
Yeah. I think the other thing is the reason we mentioned the non-custodial piece, when you think about projects launching tokens and locking up liquidity here and protocol owned liquidity. I mean, if you're taking that liquidity and you're giving it to a designated market maker off chain and doing more formal agreements. I mean, if you have something like the FTX Alameda situation, you can have a lot of your tokens locked in a bankruptcy process, which is a headache that we are, have dealt with. And it makes just the value of non-custodial market making that much more just better.
Yeah. It's shocking that, just in general, Solana, I mean, maybe it's not just where Solana is in its evolution in terms of DeFi, but that things like protocol and liquidity never became a big thing. And because pre FTX fallout, you didn't need it. I mean, you really did need it, but there were other mechanisms and just the way that the markets on Sol-based tokens were kind of set up between FTX and Radium and Orca, like it wasn't something where it became this focus. While I think, comparatively, the EVM space kind of went full tilt on on a lot of these concepts, which was great as first movers. But I think we all agree, which is one of the reasons that we build here so heavily, is that the value proposition of Solana, it really is way more DeFi friendly, especially for things that are highly transactional and require high throughput, like trading and market execution and payments and everything and swaps. And so I think that having this here now and really kind of instituting those concepts, especially with some of the early things that are going to launch here, it's going to be very important to help it get traction. So excited about it.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is like missing infrastructure on like Solana teams not having like poll and whatnot. Like you have a lot of teams that may generate a lot of fees, but where are those fees going? Like, where are they going back to the ecosystem? You have no idea. There's no transparency, and I think that's like the V2 of ARMADA is going to be solving those problems, or is solving those problems. I mean, it's already
Fleet 2. There's no V's.
Fleet 2.
It's fleets.
Right, Fleet 2.
Fleet 2. Yes.
I love that.
So I guess like talking about Fleet 1, Fleet 2, and what projects that are looking, either new and existing projects that have a token, want to launch a token, what's available today for projects that might be listening to this, for where they can go with things that are ready to go, or at least in the short term will be ready to go, versus what you guys are comfortable sharing of, what's coming next. I know there are some things that you guys want to save until your breakpoint talk at the end of the month as well for some alpha, but for whatever you're willing to share.
Yeah, so today we've got the concentrated liquidity market making vaults up and running. Those are live on mainnet. We also have the liquidity bootstrapping curve deployed to mainnet as well. For that, encourage teams that are interested in learning more, please excuse me, get in touch over Twitter or Telegram, or contact us some way. Because right now, we don't have the UI. We're not publicizing the UI for the liquidity bootstrapping curves. So what we can do is basically hand off that UI to teams so they can then host it themselves. And we think that's very important because we want these teams to own their branding, especially when they're launching a token. And that way, there's not one central place that these are launching. Our goal is not to necessarily become a launch pad. We want to help teams, develop their token ecosystem, token economics, but they should ultimately own their branding when it comes to the actual token launch.
Yeah, almost the antithesis of the launch pad.
Yeah, we don't like launch pads.
Yeah, we don't like launch pads at all. Those have not bode well.
They don't so well.
Too predatory.
Way too predatory. But it's interesting because some of the questions that are already getting asked are kind of leading towards that, people sniffing around. And is this really a launch pad? And really, at the end of the day, it's a public good for there are fees that are there that are just standard transaction fees, but those by design are meant to benefit the community. This is not something that is that has launchpad vibes at all. So.
Yeah, that's a big differentiator. Some people reached out hey, can you explain more about your launchpad? I was like, this is not a launchpad. This is a community built good to help you launch your own tokens. We'll just hand off the software. That's what it is.
You're in DeFi.
Yeah. I think that's because some people have those the opportunistic mindset of, oh, it's a cash grab or whatnot. But in reality, it's we've been building on Solana DeFi for 3 years at this point, and there's no Solana DeFi without more high quality teams, high quality projects launching. And so the goal of this is not to have a launch pad. It's to facilitate the next wave of Solana DeFi, because we know that we've built projects and products that will only benefit from that.
Yeah, and I think because we're not going to go too much into the V2 fleet, I think that's it brings that kind of home. This helps launch token get more liquidity. The next piece is about setting up your own robust governance-driven tokenomics, and we talk about it being a governance light model rather than requiring governance votes for things to happen all the time, and just kind of how tokens can plug into the SPL governance program and realms without users having to make a million decisions. So I think we're going to leave it there. I think we are going to truly announce it at our Breakpoint talk. We've promised some people that's where it will be first unveiled. So if you're going to be at Breakpoint in Amsterdam, I think our talk is it November 3rd, Taylor? Is it November 1st? I can't tell with the calendar. Great. All right. November 3rd, I think it'll be on the developer stage. We'll put, I guess maybe we can put the Breakpoint talk in the notes after this stream.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. This part of everything you guys just said just sort of reminded me of this, which might be good to talk about as well before we wrap up, because you guys are efficient and went through all of that really fast, which is great. So I guess unpacking a bit on, you went through everything that's being offered, but what are the biggest questions that you guys have been asked, the biggest misconceptions? While we're here, I think maybe we clarify those as well, because we've gotten a lot of questions so far in the last week or so about what Armada is or isn't, what projects can and can't do, and things like that. So not sure if there's anything that comes to mind for the three of you there, but we might as well cover it while we're here.
Yeah, I mean, definitely big misconception, which we already discussed, is that people think it's a launch pad when it's not. We're not going to have tokens really launching on this site, or not planning to. So that's why we encourage teams to get in touch to learn more about the on-chain infrastructure that we can help provide them. And that's really, the intention is to be public good there. What else? There's a lot of questions around impermanent loss mitigation, the actively managed vaults. We think that the market making is pretty robust. And because we have multi-position strategies that can run, we think we can do a better job reducing impermanent loss than any other platform. So
and these market makers are operating off chain, right? So they have access to more processing power and not the restrictions of purely on chain decisions. So they can move a lot faster and access a lot more data.
It's also open too. So if there's if some project wanted to come in and say, hey, we want to run our protocol on liquidity through Armada, but we have a market maker that's interested in, running their own strategies, they could do that. And Armada could simply spin up a pool, spin up a vault for them. And their market maker can come in and run their own strategies on top of Armada.
I think the biggest question I'm getting now is where can I read more? That's everyone's here, saw the stream last. Yeah, everyone saw the stream last. I feel like that's what I've gotten at least 4 times now.
Perfect. We got to bump those numbers up.
Yeah. At least four direct DMs of teams wanting to launch tokens. So this is not just random. Yeah, it's quality.
Gunny, did you have anything to add on that, or before we kind of tell people where they can go to learn more?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little more top down is that it's so important that for this next cycle, that when it is ready to come, however it comes, when it comes, that it's so important for the Solana ecosystem. It's done, the ecosystem has done so much work to move itself forward in a positive way, that as new protocols come on that choose to launch tokens, that they are very mindful of how they design their token ecosystems and how they go about launch. And it's not that there's any one right way to do it. This is very much an evolutionary process, but there is a lot of reference point from what we've seen in the EVM world that can transfer and be even done more efficiently in Solana, that we know has worked, and that has helped to create good, vibrant, liquid token ecosystems. And it is a very powerful way to build and reinforce community, and a very powerful way to help a protocol accrue value to itself and create long-term sustainability. And so in my mind, DeFi 2.0 and Solana is not about token. It's about token plus thoughtful ways of how that token works within your ecosystem. And that ultimately is, a big part of the infrastructure that is being created by ARMADA.
Agreed.
What a perfect place to cut it. All right. Well, for everyone listening, either like live or on replay, just going to run through quick for where everyone can go to get more information on this. I know Tommy, Taylor, one of you look alike, mentioned where to go and where to reach out to if you're a project that's interested in using anything that's been mentioned today. There is a Discord. So follow on Twitter at ArmadaFi is the handle. And then there's a link to the Discord there. So feel free to jump into that Discord. We're going to try to make that like the central point of contact for any projects that have questions or want to get started or want to learn more. There's going to be a lot more information dropping around this whole fleet V1 in the different parts of it on the blog for people who don't necessarily want to get into more technical documentation. That's going to be at blog.armadafi.so. And there's a link to the Docker as well. And that's going to be dripped out kind of piece by piece, done a little bit more thoughtfully around, each part of it. There's some information on the CLMM that we talked about today in there too. And then, of course, there's like the live site that Taylor showed today, which is just app.armadafi.so. And make sure you show up for Tommy and Taylor's Breakpoint presentation at the end of October, beginning of November, if you're going to be in Amsterdam for the big drop on kind of everything else that Armada is working on. Thanks to everyone for listening. And unless any of you guys have any closing notes, I think we can wrap it up here.
Oh, thanks all.
All right. Thanks, everyone.